What if I told you, your favorite villains don't rely on chaos? They follow rules. Strict rules. Rules that make them smarter than heroes, more patient than governments, and sometimes more honest than society itself. From Gus Fring to Darth Vader, from Cersei Lannister to Hannibal Lecter, the greatest villains live by the same 7 secret rules. And once you notice them, you'll never watch movies the same way again. Stay until the end, because rule number 1 is the one heroes never understand, and it's why they lose. Rule number 7, never be the loudest person in the room. The amateurs scream, the professionals whisper. Look at Gus Fring in Breaking Bad. Soft voice, calm posture, fast food manager energy. But underneath, a cartel-level strategist who weaponizes patience. Or Kaiser Soze in The Usual Suspects. You don't fear him because he's loud. You fear him because you don't see him coming. Villains understand something heroes don't. The tension is vulnerability. The quieter you are, the more underestimated you become. And that leads directly to rule number 6, the rule that turns weakness into psychological domination. Rule number 6, make your enemy need you. The most dangerous villains don't destroy hope. They become the only source of it. Hannibal Lecter doesn't overpower Clarice. He makes her depend on him. Palpatine in Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, doesn't just tempt Anakin. He positions himself as the only one who can save Padme. Dependency creates loyalty, even when it's toxic. Villains don't win by force. They win by becoming necessary. And once someone needs you, they defend you. But here's where it gets darker. Rule number 5 is why villains rarely see themselves as villains. Rule number 5. You are the hero of your own story. Every great villain believes they're right. Thanos in Avengers: Infinity War isn't cackling. He's grieving. He truly believes genocide is mercy. Eric Killmonger in Black Panther isn't random chaos. He's responding to generational abandonment. Villains justify first. They act second. That internal moral logic is what makes them compelling. Because if they're not monsters, then what separates them from us? And that leads to rule number 4, the rule that makes villains terrifying in real life. Rule number 4, control the narrative. Heroes fight battles. Villains shape perception. Cersei Lannister in Game of Thrones doesn't just eliminate enemies. She frames them. She manipulates public opinion. Homelander in The Boys maintains power through PR. Public love protects him more than superpowers ever could. Villains understand, if you control the story, you control reality. But controlling perception requires something heroes often lack. Rule number 3, never let emotion dictate strategy. Heroes react. Villains calculate. Michael Corleone in The Godfather doesn't lash out. He waits. He absorbs betrayal. Then he eliminates it. Permanently. Contrast that with impulsive villains who lose control. They fall fast. The elite villains treat emotion as information, not instruction. And if you think that's cold, rule number 2 is colder. Rule number 2. Fear is more reliable than love. Love fluctuates. Fear is consistent. Darth Vader doesn't inspire loyalty. He enforces obedience. Tony Soprano in The Sopranos understands this balance. He prefers loyalty, but when necessary, he reminds everyone what happens if they forget who's in charge. Fear reduces uncertainty, and villains hate uncertainty. But none of these rules matter without the final one, the rule that separates iconic villains from forgettable ones. Rule number 1: play the long game. Heroes want victory now. Villains think in decades. Palpatine orchestrated a galactic war just to consolidate power. Gus Fring waited years to destroy the cartel. The Penguin, in various adaptations, builds influence brick by brick. Patience multiplies power. Short-term losses mean nothing if the endgame is inevitable. And that's why the most chilling villains rarely panic. They already accounted for your move. If you made it this far, you officially understand villain psychology better than most movie protagonists. But before you click away, let's talk about the villains who didn't follow the rules. The ones who got arrogant, emotional, impatient, and it cost them everything. Because breaking even one of the 7 rules is usually fatal. 5. Commodus, Gladiator. Rule broken. Number 3. Never let emotion dictate strategy. Commodus doesn't fail because he lacks power. He fails because he lacks emotional discipline. The moment his father, Marcus Aurelius, chooses Maximus over him, Commodus fractures internally. From that point forward, every decision he makes is fueled by insecurity and validation seeking. He doesn't eliminate Maximus quietly. He stages spectacles. He turns the Colosseum into therapy. A disciplined villain would have quietly removed the threat. Instead, Commodus needs the crowd's approval. He needs to prove himself. That's ego overriding strategy. And when a villain needs applause, they're no longer calculating. They're performing. Performance is unpredictable. Strategy is controlled. Commodus loses because he fights for emotional satisfaction, not political stability. His final duel isn't about empire, it's about pride. And pride kills empires. But Commodus at least understood power structures. The next villain thought chaos itself was power, and that mistake is fatal. 4. Green Goblin, Spider-Man. Rule broken. Number 7. Never be the loudest person in the room. Norman Osborn doesn't just become a villain, he becomes a spectacle. Pumpkin bombs at parades, public attacks, grand speeches. He confuses intimidation with visibility. But here's the flaw. The louder you are, the faster the hero adapts. Compare Goblin to strategic villains like Gus Fring, who hide in plain sight. Goblin escalates too quickly. He makes his war personal and public. He forces Spider-Man into a moral corner, and in doing so, sharpens Peter's resolve. Theatrical villains inspire heroic growth. Strategic villains suffocate it. Norman wanted to be feared, but fear fueled Spider-Man's evolution, and that evolution sealed his fate. But some villains don't fall because they're loud. They fall because they weaponize fear without understanding it. 3. Joffrey Baratheon, Game of Thrones. Rule broken. Number 2. Fear is more reliable than love, only if it's controlled. Joffrey understands fear. What he doesn't understand is restraint. Strategic fear creates obedience. Impulsive cruelty creates unity against you. He humiliates Tyrion publicly. He abuses Sansa unnecessarily. He disregards Tywin's counsel. Fear must be measured. Tywin Lannister uses fear as leverage. Joffrey uses it as entertainment. That's the difference between a ruler and a tyrant. And tyrants create conspiracies. Notice something. When Joffrey dies, nobody riots, nobody avenges him, because fear without respect isolates you. And isolated villains are fragile villains. But isolation isn't always emotional. Sometimes it's strategic blindness. And the next villain was winning until he rushed the clock. 2. Bane, The Dark Knight Rises. Rule broken. Number 1. Play the long game. Bane begins as a master tactician. He dismantles Gotham structurally, breaks Batman physically, controls media and morale. He plays chess while everyone else plays checkers. But then the flaw appears. He accelerates the revolution. The nuclear deadline becomes symbolic, dramatic, theatrical. He moves from strategic dismantling to ideological spectacle. And that shift is critical. Because once the plan becomes emotional, rooted in Talia's revenge rather than cold control, it creates urgency. Urgency creates mistakes. Villains who play the long game don't impose deadlines. They let inevitability crush resistance slowly. Bane rushes, and rushing gives heroes time to rise. But none of these downfalls compare to the most tragic one, because this final villain followed nearly every rule until ego corrupted the system. 1. Walter White, Breaking Bad. Rule broken. Number 5. You are the hero of your own story until pride replaces strategy. Walter White is the ultimate case study. Early on, he embodies villain discipline: quiet, calculating, strategic, patient. He builds slowly, manipulates dependencies, controls perception. But then something shifts. He doesn't just want control, he wants credit. That's the pivot. He keeps the book Gale signed. He tells Hank he hasn't caught the real genius yet. He can't let go of recognition. A disciplined villain values outcome over acknowledgement. Walter values acknowledgement over survival. And that's the fatal crack. Because ego makes you visible. Visible villains are traceable. Traceable villains are vulnerable. Walter didn't lose because he lacked intelligence. He lost because he needed to be seen as intelligent. That's the most dangerous rule break of all. Look at all 5 together. Commodus, emotional insecurity. Green Goblin, theatrical ego. Joffrey, uncontrolled fear. Bane, strategic impatience. Walter White, pride. Different personalities, same flaw. They broke the code. Villains don't collapse because heroes are stronger. They collapse because discipline erodes. And once discipline erodes, power follows. Now the real question: which villain followed all 7 rules perfectly? And did any of them truly win? Comment below, because the answer might not be who you think.